When we start talking about group blocks, there's kind of three different levels of decisions. There's a long-term decision, which is kind of a strategic thing of looking at what percentage of my business should be group. Medium-term decision, this is the yes or no decision. That's what we're going to talk about right now. And then the short-term decision is once we've said yes, forecasting how many people in that group are going to show up. But let's talk about that medium-term decision. Should we say yes or should we say no? Well, we've got to decide two things. One is, this is if we're going to say yes or no, how many rooms for each stay day? Now realize that when groups come to your hotel, they don't always necessarily use the same number of rooms each day. So at the beginning, they might take fewer rooms, and at the end, maybe fewer rooms. But we've also got to decide on what kind of rate that we're going to be offering them. And so we've got to kind of be looking at, how many rooms for each of their days, how many rooms total, and what rate should we charge? And so should we give them a cheaper rate the more rooms they use? Well, not necessarily, because again, groups often pay, actually almost always pay a cheaper price than transient. So if we get more rooms sold to group, that means that we're displacing more transient customers. And so actually, as you'll find out, is that sometimes when you have a larger group, the price actually goes up. And that's hard to explain to your customers, right? What do you mean? You're giving me more, I'm giving you more business and you're going to charge me more? Well, that's because you're displacing more customers. You've got to understand how all of the numbers come together on this, because that transient displacement can really add up. And so you want to make sure you're making the right decision. And so when you're going through this kind of negotiation, I mean, you probably have seen this at your hotel, or you might actually be the one who's doing these negotiations. And so you're going to have a sales manager from the hotel and a meeting planner, and they're going back and forth. And the meeting planner is saying, well, I want to spend this amount, and then the sales manager is trying to get a higher price. And so, they're negotiating. And then you also have to consider some things such as the incentive and reward system. So some hotels have their incentive system set up for their sales managers based strictly on volume. So if you book a certain number of rooms, you will get this kind of bonus, or you'll get this kind of reward. Now, I could always win that award because you didn't tell me anything about the rate. And so if I sell a lot of rooms at a cheap price, that helps me with personal revenue management. It helps me get my bonus, but it doesn't help the hotel. And so you want to make sure that your incentive and reward systems are in alignment so that it's good for the sales manager, but also good for the hotel. The other thing that happens, and you probably have seen this at your hotel, is there's often a bit of a tension between the sales and marketing department and the rooms division. And so sometimes you can't necessarily get the information that you need. And so I've been to some hotels and their sales and marketing offices, and they don't necessarily have access to the property management system. And the people in the rooms division don't necessarily have access to the group software. And so sometimes getting the information can be a little bit challenging. But if you can't get the information, you're not going to be able to make the right decision. So be sure that your sales and marketing office has got information, good information on what's going on with transient, and that they have a system in place where they can make a good decision on whether to accept a group or not.